Meanwhile, the controversy around the Clinton Foundation continues. This one simply being referred to as Clinton Incorporated. WikiLeaks releasing emails showing just how blurry the line was between the Clinton family charity and their personal income. And the evidence is from a memo from Doug Band, a top fundraiser, Clinton longtime friend, talking about his role in raising money for the nonprofit foundation, while at the same time pressing donors to provide cash opportunities for the former president. And that was a lot of cash. Rich Lowry, International Review and a Fox News contributor, looked at the story right now here, and go ahead. Start.
Well, Bill, this really confirms what the criticism of the foundation has always been. Not that it doesn't do some good works, but that it's an enormous political slush fund with profit-making opportunities for everyone involved, including the Clintons and various cronies. And now it's not just the critics saying it. You see it in black and white in these folks' own words.
Okay, who's Doug Band?
Doug Band is a Clinton aide, very involved in the foundation, who goes on to start a consultancy based on his contacts with the foundation in large part. And he's kind of at the center of this entire network, where he gets business from these donors, the foundation gets money from the donors, and Bill Clinton gets speaking fees from the donors.
So he ran a company, Teneo?
Correct.
Is he in charge of that?
Yes, and there was a very fraught, puts it mildly, but very fraught relationship between Doug Band and Chelsea Clinton, who thought he was profiteering off the foundation, which he clearly was.
So our website writes how he, Band, and another aide secured at least $50 million in speaking fees and other ventures. And apparently what the article describes is how he would go out and recruit just not money for the foundation, but also to give Bill Clinton business opportunities.
Right.
In what form?
Well, consultancies, sitting on boards, and speaking fees. And it just goes to how, if the folks giving money to the Clinton Foundation were only concerned about good works, there are charities all over the place. They could give to the Red Cross, they could give to UNICEF, any number of things. Why would they also go on and give speaking fees to Bill Clinton? It's because they wanted to curry favor with the Clintons, obviously, and the expectation that might benefit them down the road. And in one of these documents, there is the phrase that donors have an expectation of a quid pro quo.
Okay, Trump on ABC on this topic now. Watch.
She's so guilty. How can she even run? But there's such anger in this country over what she got away with.
The FBI director, appointed by Republicans, said no reasonable
prosecutor would bring such a case.
He made a mistake, okay, or whatever. I don't even call it a mistake. I think something happened. Look, something happened. You go into the well, I think somebody talked to him.
So what now is the effect of this every day now for a month on the campaign?
For the first time now in the month, the news environment has really shifted against Hillary Clinton. And we've had this WikiLeaks drip, 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 but a lot of it involved just gossipy, embarrassing stuff involving underlings that no one has heard of. This goes to the heart of how the Clintons operated. It's on the front page of every single newspaper. And if I were Donald Trump, I would do everything to stay out of the news. Let this sink in. Let Hillary Clinton be the topic.
Her honest and trustworthy number has gone higher by 5 points on Donald Trump.
Yeah, and that's been moving the wrong way since the email scandal broke. She leads on most personal qualities. This is the one where she doesn't. It's a major vulnerability.
Thank you, Rich. Not a lot of time left. Thank you very much.
Thank you,
Rich Lowry.
Welcome back to Hannity. WikiLeaks continues to release damning emails from the Clinton campaign. Our own Ed Henry has been combing through it all week, all day. I mean, you must be WikiLeaked out. How are you?
Good to see you, Sean. You know, it's now over 47,000 of John Podesta's emails that are out there. WikiLeaks has said they're going to do 50,000 by the election, so obviously there are more coming today. New ones about the email scandal, about the Clinton Foundation, and also potential hypocrisy on Hillary Clinton's part over pay equity. First, on the email scandal, Neera Tanden has come up a lot, a liberal activist who's a frequent pen pal of Podesta's, and she's questioned Hillary Clinton's political instincts. Today, she raised questions in a 2015 email about Brian Pagliano. Remember, he pled the fifth over the email scandal before the special Benghazi committee. And Tanden says in one email that Brian is someone who, quote, retrieved all our emails in a previous year. She might be referring, it appears from the context, to the 2008 campaigns. So it's raising questions about whether Pagliano, Hillary Clinton's IT specialist, was involved with the Clintons much sooner. In terms of the email scandal as well, there's an email exchange between Colin Powell and Cheryl Mills when the email scandal first broke, and it appeared that the Clintons were going to try and say, look, Colin Powell had the same setup. Yes, as Secretary of State, he used a personal email account, but did not have a server. So look at this email where basically Powell threatens the Clintons through Cheryl Mills and says, I haven't been asked nor said a word about HRC and won't unless you all start it. So making it clear that he would fire back if they tried to drag him into the email scandal. Then on the Clinton Foundation, you've heard the name Doug Bann before, and you were talking about him before with that 12-page memo. There's a new email out today where one of Bann's associates was saying that while they tried to put new conflict of interest rules, and you see Bann there, in place at the Clinton Foundation in 2011, one of Bann's associates said, look, if you're going to do that, you're going to have serious problems of conflict of interest for Bill Clinton because he was taking speech money, personal gifts, as well as consulting contracts from some of the Clinton Foundation donors. That, according to Band and his associate, insiders, not critics, on the outside. And they also revealed that some of Bill Clinton's one-on-one meetings with various foundation donors cost those donors $100,000 to $140,000 just to get a one-on-one with Bill Clinton. And then I mentioned pay equity. What's interesting about that issue is that you had an email pop up where one of Hillary Clinton's advisors was basically saying, wait a second, do we have a problem on pay equity? Because she's out there in the stump all the time talking about how women have to make the same or more than men. And this advisor to Hillary Clinton's campaign was saying, wait a second, we're not even sure. Do women make as much as men do? So it's interesting that she's out on the stump saying, look, everybody else needs to do this. And insiders in some of these WikiLeaks emails were saying they weren't even sure whether the Clinton campaign was living by that same standard, Sean.
It's fascinating reading. I honestly, I'm staying up at night reading it, so it shows what a loser I am, but thank you so much.
You got better things to do.
No, that's what I do. I read this.
Apparently not.
All right, Ed, thank you. Joining us now with reaction, former 2016 GOP presidential candidate, former governor Mike Huckabee, Fox News contributor Pat Caddell. Governor, as I talk to you, I'm going to put up just the WikiLeaks revelation specific to the Clinton server up, and then we'll go to the new revelations today. This is obvious law-breaking. I'd use the word bribery, cover-up, destruction of materials. It actually seems to now make sense that they had the private server because they didn't want Freedom of Information Act request or congressional oversight because of all the money they're making.
Well, it was a very good way for them to cover up their tracks. I've said this week that the big difference between the Clintons and the Sopranos were that the Sopranos didn't leave an email trail, and the Clintons didn't think they were going to either. But the fact is, the WikiLeaks exposure has revealed what really amounts, Sean, to nothing less than a criminal enterprise. And the shocking thing is, people are going to vote for someone on Tuesday who is either a person who believes that the job of president is serving the public or sucking the life out of the public. This is why Hillary Clinton cannot be president, because they have used every government agency and all the powers to do two things: protect themselves from being accountable to the laws that the rest of us have to live by, and then to use those powers for self-enrichment and for going after their political enemies. Imagine, if you will, Hillary Clinton having the power of the IRS and all these agencies.
They were making enough money. It's inexplicable to me. Why? Did they need that much more money?
Well, Sean, you got to remember who they're hanging out with. They're hanging around with the George Soroses. They're hanging around with all the billionaires who have so much money that they'd like to be part of that. And, to make $153 million as they did on speeches between 2001 and 2015, that's a pretty good gig. Bill Clinton gets $100,000 just to have a meeting with somebody.
Is it worth let me bring Pat in here. If she's elected, you were just telling me before we came on the air, this is a disaster for this country.
Well, I think the problem is I went through Watergate. I was the youngest person on Richard Nixon's enemies list. I think I may be the oldest on Hillary's at the moment, but leaving that aside, I think that, what we learn is that presidency was consumed when Watergate exploded. This has already exploded. We're talking about someone, and I think American people, if they think about it, will have a huge impact, because if the day she's elected, this crisis starts. It will not go away. It's not going away unless she pardons herself, or the president, if Obama pardons her, which would blow the country wide open.
So we will be more divided than ever before.
And nothing will happen.
Be paralyzed.
And nothing will happen. The country in a moment of crisis. So that's really the choice. This will all be about her and the Clintons, and what I agree with the governor. I mean, my God, what you're seeing here is a criminal enterprise, really. And we all know the foundation was always much worse. And it is about money, and it's about many things. But you know what, most of all, the country is tired of corruption. And the word that is not allowed to be spoken inside the Beltway and by the political elites is corruption. In the country, you've got over 87% of people believe that they're corrupt.
Exit question for both of you. I'll start with you, Pat. Who's going to win this election?
I think at the moment, let me just say, we're in motion, and I think it's moving Trump's way. I lived through 1980.
You think it's the same?
And I think it could be
Governor, who's going to win?
Donald Trump is going to win. It's not going to be as close as people think, and I've said that since the summer when his poll numbers were low.
We've got to take a break
today.
Thank you both. We'll continue. She is the single most corrupt, the single most dishonest candidate, the single most self-aggrandizing and enriching candidate to ever seek the presidency. Now think about this. If she wins on Tuesday, Clinton could be indicted while in office. She will spend all of her time certainly fighting off any type of indictment or criminal charges against her. Well, that will create in this country a massive constitutional crisis. Now, we also have new polling that suggests Americans think this will happen. According to our latest Fox News poll, 47% of likely voters say it is very or somewhat likely that the FBI review of Clinton's emails will lead to criminal charges. And a brand new McClatchy poll just out tonight shows a total of 83% of likely voters believe that Clinton has done something wrong. I'll interpret illegal. We also now are learning that the FBI has opened investigations into Clinton's private email server and into the Clinton Foundation. Now, this is the private server that FBI agents say there is a 99% chance, because of her recklessness, her unwillingness to obey the law, a 99% chance that up to 5 foreign intelligence agencies hacked into and stole her emails. Now, that's the private server that contained classified, top secret, and even the highest classification special access program information on that server. Remember, it was a mom and pop shop in a bathroom closet? This all despite Hillary Clinton saying repeatedly that it didn't. There are also the 33,000 emails that her team, remember, they didn't wipe it with a cloth, they used bleach bit. In other words, they acid washed it, so as Trey Gowdy said, God couldn't find it if he wanted to. And that was to permanently erase after Hillary was served with a congressional subpoena to preserve all those emails. And now, of course, thanks to WikiLeaks, we also know her own aides questioned if Hillary Clinton actually turned over all of the work-related emails. And right now, tonight, CBS News is reporting that the FBI has found new emails on Anthony Weiner's laptop, not duplicates. As for the Clinton Foundation, the FBI is investigating the Clintons' pay-to-play practices, and sources in the FBI are saying an avalanche of new evidence is coming in every day. Now, WikiLeaks exposed the Clintons' own aide that called it Bill Clinton, Inc. Remember, they were broke when they left the White House? How did they get $200+ million? This is a scheme directly tied to the foundation the former president used to line his pockets with all of that money. And remember, the AP reported that of all the people, individuals that saw Hillary when she was Secretary of State, well, 55% non-government people, they were people that donated to the Clinton Foundation or pledged to donate to the Clinton Foundation. Pretty outrageous any way you look at it. Anyway, not to mention the tens of thousands of millions of dollars, rather, the Clinton Foundation has accepted. Remember countries that treat women, gays, lesbians, Christians, and Jews horribly? Countries like Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, the UAE, Brunei, Qatar, Oman, Algeria. Did Hillary ever criticize these countries? Women are told how to dress. They can't drive in Saudi Arabia. They can't go to work or school without a man's permission. In Qatar, did you know that marital rape was legal? Marital beatings are legal of women? Did you know in Saudi Arabia, gays and lesbians are killed? Christians and Jews, you can't build a temple or a Christian church. They're persecuted. Anyway, joining us now from Ted's Montana Grill in Illinois, the author of now the bestseller Treason, former Speaker of the House, Fox News contributor Newt Gingrich. For 2 days in a row now, they're playing the race card and using the Klan. What does that tell you?
It tells you that they're desperate and they're terrified. You can always measure how much trouble they're in by the intensity of their attack and the degree of their desperation. And I think it's pretty clear now, as you just pointed out, you know, when you have 87% of the country that thinks you did something wrong, you got an uphill climb to get to be president. When you have over half the country that thinks you might have a criminal indictment, it gets pretty tough to get those last votes.
Yeah, by the way, I hear the thousands that have been waiting online and you've been signing books all night. We appreciate you taking time, Mr. Speaker. All right, let's say, God forbid, she wins the presidency. Will the country be paralyzed? Will she spend all of her waking hours fighting off potential indictment, fighting with or meeting with lawyers? Will any work in this country get done, or will we literally be spinning our wheels with no progress whatsoever?
Oh, I think that the amount of evidence that's coming out day after day after day, she will drown in investigations. The FBI investigations, the Internal Revenue Service in Dallas is investigating the entire legality of the Clinton Foundation. You're going to have investigations from both the House and Senate. And every day we learn, as you pointed out a minute ago, we learn new things. And all of them are bad. And so I just think, you know, the evidence, as you and I were talking about on radio today, the very fact that the Constitution prohibits office holders or their spouses from taking the kind of money they were taking from Qatar and from Saudi Arabia and from Morocco and from Russia. It's just clear illegality. And I think that what the Clintons are doing is they're finally forcing us into a national conversation about whether or not we're going to be a country where the rule of law matters and a country where even the powerful can't commit felonies and get away with it. And I think this is a very decisive moment, and because it's so obvious, I think that's why you're going to see the last 3 days absolute hysterical attacks from the president, from Secretary Clinton and others, because I think they sense it slipping away.
The president absolutely lost it today. We'll play that video a little bit later in the program on top of using the KKK analogy. You know, one of the things I like to point out, Mr. Speaker, is, all right, how are we better off than we were 8 years ago? Well, I look at numbers. You're a numbers guy, you're a historian, but we now have the lowest labor participation rate since the 70s. We have now 95 million Americans out of the labor force. We now have 51-year low in the home ownership rate, the worst recovery since the 40s, 13 million more Americans that are on food stamps, 8 million more Americans that are in poverty. We've doubled the national debt. 1 in 5 American families don't have a single family member working. In the black community, 93% voted for Obama. Well, if you look at the increase, 58% increase black Americans on food stamps, 20% increase black Americans out of the labor force. Will this shift? Will this change?
Well, I think that it'll change if you get Donald Trump. It's not going to change if you keep the same policies, the same personalities, the same approaches. I mean, the tragedy of many of America's inner cities, Detroit, where 9% of the students can read in the 3rd grade, Baltimore, where 13% of the students can pass their 8th grade science and math test. This cripples people economically, leaves them without a viable future, and creates many of the problems that we see bubbling up because people are in despair. At the same time, I cannot overstate the depth of corruption that we are beginning to learn about from WikiLeaks and from other things, including the FBI investigations and the court-ordered release of various emails. I mean, the courts have played a major role here in exposing just how bad this is, and the total effect, which is growing by the day. And I can't quite imagine with 650,000 emails on Anthony Weiner's computer, how many new things we're going to learn over the next couple of months.
Well,
so I think
signed
Hillary to win.
She signed a separation agreement saying she had turned all of those over under penalty of law. Every email, and if she has classified emails, and there was a report tonight that in fact there was, every email on that server would represent a separate count. It would seem Uma Abedin might have a very quick path to jail along with her husband, unless of course they start cooperating.
Well, remember, 43 people were indicted, tried, or convicted in the Watergate. It wasn't just Richard Nixon, but there were a whole circle of people, because you get sucked into these things, and then you get sucked into the cover-up, and then you get sucked into lying to the FBI. All these things are felonies. And I think just Doug Band's memo, the 12-page memo, outlining how Clinton Inc. operates and the way they set the whole thing up to enrich themselves, that memo alone would give any prosecutor a roadmap for a trial.
The uninformed, demoralized, easily distracted, entertainment-addicted, apathetic, low-information American voters are the very ones who invite mass murder, infanticide, terrorism, disease, economic disaster, and ruin within their own nation. These people happen to represent the Democrat Party's largest voting bloc because they know close to nothing about the issues that affect themselves, that benefit their own nation, and are too self-absorbed to even care.